There are a lot of people just chatting it up. Anyone want to tell me what you all talked about, what you said? Okay, there's a lot of conflict around the difference between city and county. What else? Decline in healthcare. I'm going to add teachers to that, big time. Political what? Yes. Political parties, totally divided. Anything else? Yes. Yes, a lot of panic about trans rights. Okay, one more thing. Yes. Oh, definitely here in Missouri. Lack of the golden rule. Yeah, yeah. I personally would have said craptastrophe. Missouri is a hard state to live in right now, okay? Especially if you are part of a group that they have othered, okay? All right. So education right now, and of course, we concentrate a lot on education, but what we ended up finding out is that, you know what? Every equity issue impacts education. And so pre-2020, what we started to have and what we started to see across our schools and a lot of our institutions was an embrasure of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Accessibility is also another one that they throw in there. So we're looking at curriculum, hiring practice, student data assessment, community relations, board decisions. I know because I was part of that. I was an educator in Parkway. And that's what we would sit down and do together as teams. And we would learn about it. And some of this stuff that now is so taboo was normalized. As a matter of fact, right now, I wouldn't have a book left to teach except for Beowulf. Every single book that I taught in 9th through 12th grade is on a banned book list right now. Isn't that something? Like, whoa. And then we had inclusion of social emotional learning and restorative justice practices. Again, we were looking for better ways to educate kids and to include more kids and to make sure that we did things so that more children had the opportunity to thrive. But then the pivotal moment came in 2020 with the death of George Floyd as well as Breonna Taylor's. I'm gonna add that in there. And what we saw across the nation, student activism, advocacy for Black lives, increased voter turnout for the 2020 election, particularly ages 18 through 34. They went from 49% to 57%. That's a huge jump, I know. Isn't that awesome? Huge jump. That's why some of our Republican candidates for president want to raise the voting age to 25 because Gen Z doesn't like them at all. And then, of course, there was the COVID pandemic, and so that led to increased scrutiny of curriculum and parental efforts to exert control over curriculum and educators. What you had is a bunch of people. This is one of those honest moments. What you had is a bunch of people who have been used to controlling things. They've been used to it because, hey, let's be real, their neighborhoods were set up for certain people to be in control. Their businesses were set up for certain people to be in control. Schools, systems, we can go all the way up and down. And they felt a lack of control because, hey, they couldn't dictate what was going on with COVID. And so they did a lot to try to exert that control over a virus. So the results ended up being increased attacks on school boards and educators. We saw that a lot. We saw it especially, ground zero here in Missouri was which school district? Rockwood, right. To the point that now the Black administrators that were there doing good work have left the district. As a matter of fact, one has filed a lawsuit because they failed to protect her at all. They left her open to all of those attacks and threats. I know about those because they tried to come after me, right? A cease and desist letter got them together real quick. But they tried to come after me too, so I understand. Teachers and librarians began leaving the field to pursue other careers. Do you know that here in Missouri, more than half of our teaching staff has less than 5 years of experience? I can tell you, as an educator, the stuff that I did my first 3 years of teaching, I'm like, hey kids, at least I loved you. Because it was a disaster. I was learning my way. I was learning my way around classroom management. I was learning my way around how to be more inclusive, about how I use my words, everything. I was trying to be a good teacher, but I didn't have the experience yet to be a good teacher. So it's kind of scary that most of our teaching staff don't have the experience to be good teachers. All right, fewer college graduates are entering the educational field. I spoke at Truman State University a few years ago, and do you all know that 100% of the students there were white at the educational college? Only about 5% of the teachers certified in our state are Black. So that is a shame, and now on top of that, those same teachers are under consistent attack. It began to be contentious board meetings, adverse student behaviors, because hey, if parents are acting badly, kids say, why not? And book bans and much, much more. So here's an example. One of the first teachers that was fired for teaching a book, Matthew Hahn. Okay, he was fired actually because he taught from Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, Between the World and Me. And then he showed a poem in class, and oops, he missed editing out a curse word. It was about white privilege, okay? And they fired him. I actually flew down to go to his hearing. And it was shameful. It was shameful because you had all the kids that were like there saying, no, all this stuff you're saying is just not true, but it didn't matter. And so they lost a really good teacher. That's Brittany Hogan. Rockwood lost her to the point that she again had to file a lawsuit because of the emotional damage. I've talked to Brittany. She still carries trauma from what she went through. Dr. Terry Harris, he hung in as long as he could, but he finally resigned from Rockwood as well. And then this is in my very own school district. We were overtaken by 5 extremists on our school board, and the first thing that they made sure that they did was to rescind the resolution against racism and discrimination. And they made sure that they included, well, here's what they did, because this is how white supremacy works, is that they use systems. So what ended up happening is that they changed the rules and said, hey, if you have a new school board and the majority of the people that signed the resolution are no longer on that school board, that resolution automatically sunsets in 75 days. Oh yeah, and if it's hanging on the wall, you have to take it down from the wall too. Here's the thing about it, there's only one resolution that hung on the walls at Francis Howe North, and that was the resolution against racism and discrimination. And they did all this with the promise of, well, we can revisit it, we can talk about it, and guess what? They've now had 2 additional board meetings. They have not talked about it, and it's getting ready to sunset. So we have people that are openly saying, we're removing the promise to take a stand against racism and discrimination. That's shameful to me. And then even more recently, we had a Texas teacher who was fired for showing the Anne Frank graphic novel to 8th graders. So we're in a critical juncture right now. What are some of the causes of this? Well, here's the thing that we have to realize, and this is the tie together. When you look at book bans, when you look at what's going on with our school boards, when you look at the anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ laws, when you look at any, right now, the anti-CRT, anti-DEI, do you all know that last year, Representative Doug Ritchie proposed a law to take equity and inclusion training out of any school that has a medical program? That is a direct attack on Black and brown lives, on trans lives, on LGBTQ lives. Direct attack. But the thing is that there's a whole network behind them that we have to realize, and that network is full of money, it's full of ignorance, it's full of white supremacy, it's full of greed. So, conservative network of individuals, organizations, donors, and politicians who want to remove personal rights, prevent progress toward a multicultural democracy, promote school privatization. They want to take funding out of public schools, strip public schools, so that they can create a cottage industry around school privatization. Maintain power in the hands of a few, and of course, you always got to follow the money, profit. All right. So who are some of these people? One of my colleagues, former colleagues at the African American Policy Forum, Kristen Penner, did a mapping project in which she went through and she did that work, followed the money, followed the ideas, followed the sample laws that were coming out, because that's the other thing that you start realizing. When you look at Tennessee law, the law that is filed in Tennessee, and then the law that is filed in Missouri, and then the law that's filed in Florida, and then the one that's filed in Texas, they all look the same. That's because they have conservative think tanks releasing sample laws for people to just literally cut and paste and then propose. So we have individuals like Christopher Rufo, Edward Bloom. Edward Bloom is the guy responsible for affirmative action going away. Yeah. We have the Heritage Foundation, Discovery Institute, the Manhattan Institute, ALEC. These are all organizations that, again, have sample legislation available. They bring their conservative people in to learn more about it, to think in the big picture about how they're going to use this, and then to take it away and file it within their states. We have donors, the Koch Foundation, Donors Trust, Colcom Foundation, the Richard and Helen DeVos Foundation. During the Trump administration, Betsy DeVos was our Secretary of Education. The call is coming from inside the house. They put someone who didn't like public schools over our entire public school system. And then we have so-called grassroots organization, Moms for Liberty. No. Here in St. Louis, we had an organization, I can't even think of it right now. All of what they do is they put money from these big donors in, and they say, here, we're gonna pretend like you guys are grassroots, but really we're gonna pay you to go in and do the work of tearing this stuff down, of getting people riled up, making folks angry, getting them to go to board meetings and, state legislatures, et cetera, et cetera. We're gonna give you all the resources you need. MoEEP is a true grassroots organization. It's amazing, we often get accused of being well-funded. Aren't you precious? And we think, is that like a sign that we're like really doing good work? Because no, we're not well-funded. We're literally selling like t-shirts and yard signs to get by. Everyone in our organization is volunteer only. We do fundraisers. So one of these days, y'all might have to buy some cookies or popcorn or something from me. We're true grassroots. And we come from a group of individuals who are just really concerned about what we're seeing. And they work very, very hard. Right. So the result has been what I call the slate of hate. All right, when we look at our legislature, what's going on in our legislature, these are all the things that they attacked. They put together a Parents' Bill of Rights that only gave rights to certain parents, a minority of parents. It took away my right as a parent for my daughter to be able to learn about people who look like her in her school. It took away my right to be able to say, no, I want these types of books available for my daughter to read because she's mature and she can handle it. It took away a lot of my rights, but it gave the minority of parents a whole bunch of rights. They attacked birth certificates, the ability to change your gender on your birth certificate easily. Well, it's still not that easy, but they wanted to make it even harder. Of course, the bills that ended up going through were the trans youth and sports bills that basically say, hey, trans youth cannot play sports. They have to play sports with their assigned gender, not with their actual gender. And then, of course, the attack on gender-affirming care. And the thing is that they did it to target youth, trans youth. Thing is, they targeted everyone. WashU no longer offers gender-affirming care. So that's a problem. That's a problem. And there are legislators that have been quoted as saying things like, our goal is to get rid of transgenderism everywhere. You can't get rid of somebody that's here. You can't get rid of somebody that is living and breathing and going about their life and living their experience. You just can't do that unless, and that's where the issue comes in. Because I saw a quote that it was wonderful. People who are willing to ban books will eventually burn people. Excuse me, people who are willing to burn books will eventually burn people. And that's what we saw, the slippery slope that happened during the Holocaust. And I hate to say it, and ring the alarm, we're on that same path right now. We've got to realize that. All right. So I won't go through all of these, but some of the impacts is remove the rights of historically excluded students to have an educational environment where they can thrive and academically succeed, particularly those that stand at the intersection of identities and abilities. Could you imagine being a Black trans student with a learning disability and a physical disability right now in schools? You've got people attacking each one of your identities. Disallow historically included students to learn how to be successful in a diverse society. Create failing school districts which will reduce property values. Have a chilling effect on educational autonomy. We already see that. We see teachers, educators who are self-censoring in order to avoid being the subject of attack, because we don't have enough people that are there to support and that are there to say, no, 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 not in our community. Okay. I'll let you kind of skim that. I will highlight this one. Deny large money-making hosting opportunities to cities. Mayor Q in Kansas City talked about how he got the soccer, I don't understand the sports balls. But there was a big soccer game or something that was over in Kansas City. He got it by meeting conditions of inclusivity because of all of the different people from different cultures and backgrounds that would be coming in. Do you think people are going to say, you know what? It would be great if we had this big event in Missouri? No. No, because the headlines coming out of it makes it unsafe for people to be here. All right. And here's the big thing. They use our own personal biases to advance their agenda. That's why we see everything being thrown at the wall, right? I can't get you to agree to ban DEI, but maybe you have a personal bias against trans people. So maybe I can get you to agree with that. Maybe you have in your head, hey, you know what, trans people, it would be unfair for a trans woman to play sports with other women. They use those types of biases in order to get you to support their agenda. And I would caution you with this. If you get to a point where you allow one group to be named, eventually all groups will be named. They will use that same strategy in order to remove our individual rights one by one. Like I said, Nazi Germany showed us, it doesn't just start with, end with one group. It goes on and on. 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust, but 11 million people died in general. And they came from a lot of different groups. You guys have seen where they had all of the different triangles to represent the groups that they're discriminating against. So when we start saying it's okay to discriminate against this group, eventually they're going to keep adding groups and you will fall somewhere within it. How many of you identify as Christian? Right. So that means that eventually, because we have Christo-fascism going on, that means eventually all of you sitting here would be targeted. So that's something to consider as well. So an effective response is organizing, and one of the biggest things, I actually just wrote a blog for the American Libraries Association's Unite Against Book Ban campaign. And it's called Everyone's an Organizer, because you all are. You have the ability to organize. So I'm going to tell you the difference between activism and organizing. Activism is the policy or action of using vigorous campaigning to bring about political or social change. That's when you're getting in the streets. That's when you're holding up the signs. That's when you're at the school board meeting screaming and yelling. That's when you're doing that stuff. But here's what organizing is: arranging into a structured whole, order. And so the difference between activism and organizing ends up being vision. When you have a vision, and all of us hopefully have a vision of the Missouri that we want to see, now you start looking backwards to say, how do we get this done? That's where the organizing part comes in. So it's not enough to just protest, hold up signs, flip a car over, whatever you want to do. It's not enough to do that. What we have to be doing is saying, how are we going to coordinate with one another in order to ensure that there is consistent pushback against these individuals? And all you have to do is say, you know what, I'm going to get my friends together, and we're going to look to see what groups we can join and MoEEP. What groups we can join in order to organize against these people. You can do it. So with us, we view our organizing split into one of 4 categories. And so advocacy, are we there talking to the right people, telling the right people what we believe in, what we hope for, what we want? Education, are we making sure that enough people know what's happening and how to fight back against it? Activism, yeah. Every once in a while, we're going to get in the streets and put a sign up. Right, we still have to do that. And then support for those people that are under attack. How do we support them? And so, we do things like we've sourced a list of attorneys who are willing to send free cease and desist letters for those people who are being harassed in their neighborhoods, in their schools, et cetera, for saying, hey, I'm against book bans. Or, hey, I'm against discrimination of any type. We put out letters of support or calls to action in order to support specific people. We did it for Terry Harris. We asked people, please contact Terry Harris and let him know that you approve of what he's doing the right thing. But then also contact the board members individually and let them know the same thing. But then also go ahead and email the superintendent too while you're at it and let them know, hey, Terry Harris, he's the real deal. So again, I feel that one of the responses is the Missouri Equity Education Partnership. And I will tell you this, I set this organization up to be the type of organization that I needed to thrive in. So I set it up to be where people can use their voices, where they can bring ideas, where they can join with other people to get things done, where they could try to connect. Because that's my favorite part of this work, is the connections that I get to make. I'm really lucky right now. My friend Anita is in Karis, and we were like, hi, so excited to see you, hi. So happy for all of the connections that we make. And that ends up being something that is a narrative that they use too, that somehow talking about race, talking about discrimination, talking about these important things will divide us. No. It brings us closer together. Because what I'm basically doing is I'm teaching you how to love me. And in the process, I'm learning how to love you. And that's a really cool thing to be able to do on a daily basis. All right. So our mission statement, we are going to be working on this October 28th, but Missouri Equity Education Partnership is a grassroots organization founded in 2021 that promotes equity by supporting anti-bias and anti-racist approaches to education and community. We're on a mission to create equitable learning opportunities and inclusive environments for all. We believe we're all stronger when we let them learn. And so how were we effective? We attack the root, not just the symptoms. We can't keep following these people from one issue to the next issue, to the next issue, to the next issue. You have to have a cohesive plan that attacks what's behind it. What is behind it? Oh, I was asking y'all that. What is behind it? Greed? Ignorance? Fear? Hate? Power, misinformation, all of those things. No one mentioned white supremacy. I'm going to go ahead and throw that out there. Okay. No one mentioned Christofascism. I'm going to go ahead and throw that out there. All So we organized in each area where our equity was under attack. We provided specific guidance about actions to take. Whenever I'm like, hey, you know what, volunteer with MoEEP, I don't get that many volunteers. But when I say, you know what we're asking you for is 30 minutes a week to do A, B, and C, I get a lot more volunteers because people, they're like, oh, I can do that. When you hear the word volunteers, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to get out of bed at 8 on Saturday mornings. I'm gonna let y'all know, no you don't, because I don't. So for me, if it doesn't start like 10 or after, we're not doing it. Create a community so that our work is centered around people. And what I mean by create a community is that when you are with us, you're with us. We see you. We love you. We accept you. We want you here. Every single person that works with us in MoEEP, because it is a cultural value in our organization. We want you there doing whatever you want to do. I have people volunteering. Like, for instance, one of our best volunteers lives over on the Kansas City side. She is mainly homebound because she is the primary caretaker for a family member. But she said, you know what, I want to help. And so she is one of our best researchers. She is one of our best, she helps with our websites. She does whatever she needs to do, all from this really awesome brown leather, lazy boy. I think that's awesome, you know? But then we also have the people that are out there in the streets too, and doing stuff, meeting people, doing what they need to do. So there's an opportunity to do everything. I tell people this all the time. If you quilt for equity. Okay, go ahead and make that quilt. We will auction it off and then use that money to support lobby day or whatever we need. We can use every single person, every skill you have, and it will be appreciated. All right. So you can organize too. And I'm going to wrap up with this. Find your why. So what is your purpose? What are your skills, talents, and abilities? Who can you link up with? And what does the movement need? We need research. We need messaging. We need articles. We need letters to the editor. There's so much. If you know how to do flyers and things like that, yeah, we need all of that stuff. Social media help. And then sustaining for the long haul, help others with the following: self-care. So help other people with self-care. That's why I loved that mindfulness exercise today. That was amazing for me because I thought about the time. How much time do I actually spend just taking deep breaths? I don't do that enough. So help people with those things. And then, of course, community care. That's taking care of one another and understanding. I love the Desmond Tutu quote. My humanity is wrapped up in yours before we can only be human together. And that's the truth. All right. So if you want to contact me, here are my emails. Here's my Calendly. If you want to meet with me, just stick an appointment on my calendar. We can meet. I also have cards out there. I have a magazine from the American Federation of Teachers that's about book bans. I have information about MoEEP. Grab that and let's work together. Let's find out how we can better work together. So thank you. Here's all of our socials, and I appreciate you all letting me speak to you today.
Wow. I said I was grateful you were back, and I'm extraordinarily grateful. Thank you so much. Members of the Welcome Team will now take up a collection to support this society. If you are moved to make a donation today, we appreciate anything that you may be able to offer. Like all nonprofits, we rely on the generosity of our members and our friends to ensure that our community can keep providing our many free programs. If you don't have cash with you today, you can donate at ethicalstl.org/donate, use the QR code, or look on our website and become a pledging member. If you are interested in joining the Ethical Society, our membership coordinator, Courtney Scott Camarada, she's not here today, but she is available over email, which is on your handout, so please reach out to her. And we'd also love to keep you informed about future events at the Ethical Society of St. Louis. If you'd like to join our weekly newsletter, use the QR code above me to sign up. We have a lot of happenings coming up this week. I'm not going to read them now, but please make sure to check our connection or reach out to me. Come up and talk to me after the program, and I'm happy to read you the list. But most importantly, Heather has agreed to stay after and chat with us during coffee hour. So please, if you want to continue that conversation, connect, find ways to volunteer or support her organization or many adventures, I don't think that's the right term, please find her. So there's a lot of ways that you can get involved in our community and a lot of ways that you can get involved with helping out Heather. So please take those steps and find the ways that make you feel good in our community. We will now have our third musical selection by Karis, United in Purpose.
On your way to talking to Heather, we hope you'll pick up one